Hey guys, welcome to the BlizzCon after show. We got back from Columbus this afternoon. Well, I should say this evening. I make a shopping trip, so got back here a little later than the trip would have actually taken. But uh, I should probably not even do the first part of this video. I should probably just show you what I bought and be on with it. But a few things have been sort of festering for the ride home, so bear with me here. On the grand scale, the overall big scheme, it was a good day. Had a lot of fun. Got to talk to a lot of people. Got to meet Steve Courtney and Daryl, American Legend, for the first time. Also, the first time I really had a chance to, well, I can't say sit down because that's a problem we'll discuss here in a second, but I had a chance to stand around and talk to Hunter for a good chunk of the day in a couple of different little sessions of just discussing, our build philosophy and building for competition and dealing with the world of online modeling and things like that. So all in all, a good time. Let's say I'll throw Matt Gettard in there, of course, but he's from Columbus, so seeing him at that show was not anything unexpected. I didn't realize Hunter was coming up. I knew he was running sort of a limited show schedule in 2016 compared to what he normally did, and didn't expect him to see him there. And then all of a sudden, I saw a Pro Star with a custom sleeper on it. Well, hey, wait a minute, I know who built that. So anyway, like I said, good times as far as the social aspect went. The contest itself, as far as what was put on the table, very good attendance. Probably a lot of that had to do with the fact that it was like 62 degrees in Columbus today. The BlizzCon lost its blizzard. I know last year was a big snowy mess, and I didn't go because of that. But this year, well, the weather gods were certainly smiling upon the club out there. The venue was new this year. It had been in a different building that doesn't exist anymore. That's why that had to be changed. And it was in a arts, it was called Arts Impact Middle School, part of sort of a, oh, I don't know how you could call it, but it's an arts-specific middle school. The term will come to me after I'm done with the video, but it's, dedicated to an arts education overall as far as what the curriculum is about. Nice building, new building. But it was really made for a weird vendor setup. Things were stuffed into hallways. They didn't open classrooms up, which I understand. You're not going to let a bunch of strange people wander around your classrooms. But it made for very, very tight confines, especially prior to the contest rooms closing at noon. At noon, obviously, a lot of people went to lunch that had contest models in that, had obviously obligated to stay until the judging was over. And then it seemed like a lot of the shoppers, people that had come in just to, view the models and buy stuff, they also left around noon when everybody got kicked out of the gymnasium where the model contest itself was being held. There was like one big room, might have been the cafeteria, that had a bunch of stuff really wedged into it, and then, like I said, stuff was down the hallways, and I sort of felt bad for several of the vendors that I personally know. They were shoved into spaces that were much smaller than they'd normally be dealing with in a regular fire hall kind of room or just a gymnasium kind of room, as well as the fact that the tables that would be up against a wall, in a normal show, you would set those out 3-5 feet away from the wall so that you could put chairs behind them. Well, because the hallways are so narrow, I mean, it's a middle school, it's designed for 12-year-old kids, not, overweight 40-year-old guys, it made people either have to really cram themselves behind the tables if they want to sit behind them, or shove everything up against the wall and then stand up all day long. And there really was a significant lack of chairage going on in this place. I mean, there were not spare chairs to be found anywhere. There were bleachers in the contest room because it was a gymnasium. However, they kicked everybody out of the gymnasium entirely when they closed the room for judging, which meant that all of the seating disappeared. But like I said, it's an okay venue. The setup was a little weird. It wasn't necessarily a problem for me personally, or I don't think many other people. Although there were several times where you would get stuck in places where you couldn't walk because there was just so much traffic and stuff was so crammed together. Another problem with the venue, and this is something that I know at least was, I haven't been to TriCon, the IPMS convention here in Pittsburgh the last couple of years, but it was something that also affected them, is there's no food. My friend was selling Girl Scout cookies. I know they sold quite a few boxes of Girl Scout cookies because that was literally the only food in the whole building. There was no food vendor. There was no like food truck. If you've ever been to the Buckeye Classic, the show that the Automotive Club puts on, there's no food in that venue because it's like the county fairgrounds. But there's like a food truck outside that comes and sells food. No food. A good chunk of people from out of town. The directions, not so much the directions the club gave out, but the GPS directions for a lot of people were incorrect because they've rerouted some of the freeway right around that school. And so people, were already confused enough of how to get where they were going, let alone just dispensing them into what was downtown Columbus. It wasn't even like it was a suburb. You were literally maybe 15 blocks out of, the center of town. To try to find food. Now, there was a Wendy's someplace close by because a bunch of people came back with that, but, there was no, like, hey, here's a map of some restaurants if you guys want to go get something. And then, there's no easy way to put this because it makes me sound bitter. I want to say up front, the competition class itself was well attended, and putting the McLaren on the table, I didn't expect to win anything, and I didn't. So I can't say, well, that this next set of comments is going to be about the fact I didn't win anything. I didn't think I was going to win anything anyway, so whatever. But the automotive judging in particular was everything bad you hear about IPMS automotive judging. They shit the bed in every form and fashion over there. I know some people won. Steve Courtney won some stuff, and I don't mean to diminish anybody who won awards, but the overall awards, just in the general sense, and getting some feedback from the people that they sort of pulled in to volunteer to judge the automotive stuff, they were not really listened to by the IPMS people. The IPMS people sort of had their own views of what a correct and proper automotive build was supposed to be like, and not even really applying IPMS rules to it necessarily. I know several situations where builds were kicked out for bad paint, but bad paint was accepted in different categories because, according to the IPMS guys, that the paint wouldn't have been that good in period. This is a case of I guess Street Rod where they were saying, well, the paint wouldn't have been that good out of the factory. Well, Street Rod's not a factory car. We're not talking about rat rods here. We're not talking about, a 1940 Ford factory stock, replica stock car. Street Rod. A Street Rod is a show car, to me at least. And a show car should have a show finish, or at least a shiny, paint issue finish. And they were kicking stuff out of consideration in other classes because of orange peel or bad paint finishes, but were accepting it in other classes. It wasn't weathering. It was just bad paint. It wasn't supposed to be representing 1930s paint. It was just bad paint. The best automotive class was won by a guy who you would expect to win that class, but not with the model that should have won the award. When you have Hunter Selby there and John Brolin was there with his large-scale Lotus, I know that if you've been anywhere in the East Coast, you've probably seen that build as well. You would have thought it would have come down to something that Hunter had done versus something that John had done versus the ProStar probably, or maybe the Astro versus that Lotus versus a few other kits here and there that would have been good enough to be considered for best of show. And yeah, no, it was a bad time in the automotive class. I don't know how the judging went for the rest of the IPMS stuff with tanks and sci-fi. Maybe that was better because that's their genre of stuff. But I don't know how many people were actually satisfied by the judging. Obviously, the people that won are very satisfied by the judging, but just from the people who were involved in the judging being dissatisfied by the way the judging went, and then the overall. Yeah, it was just a very weird thing, and like I said, there's a lot of people in the automotive realm that don't want to enter IPMS contests because of the reputation that they have for the weird way they judged, and they proceeded to weirdly judge this. to the point where several of the volunteers that were pulled in to do automotive stuff were like, nah, I'm not doing this for you guys next year, which is a big problem. But, you know, congratulations to everybody who did win. I mean, I'm not saying that anybody who won didn't deserve to win. It was sort of when you got down into that next tier, the seconds, thirds, and at one point they split competition into street legal and not street legal. Think about that for half a second. It's competition. Therefore, everything is a race car. What the bleep is a street legal competition car? If it's got treaded tires on it, then it's pro stock, or pro street rather, or pro touring, or something along those lines, and it belongs in a different category entirely. It doesn't belong in competition because competition is race cars. What they should have done that way was split the category into straight line and then, you know, everything else, or drag versus competition, everything else. The way most competitions are split, but splitting it street legal versus not street legal. This isn't Street Outlaws Louisiana here, guys. It's a model contest. Also, another thing that was heard out of the judging grapevine was the fact that a bunch of the builds that would have anything would be considered to be camber, hella flush, VIP, or just you know, any kind of builds that, you know, wouldn't be a factory stock altitude, so to speak, were immediately dismissed because they had, quote, broken wheel bearings. Again, not everything is a factory stock build. It's just, you know, that's applying that mentality that follows the IPMS around, that everything is rivet counted and has to be the exact way that it's supposed to be because they're making a military subject of a specific vehicle from a specific war from a specific theater, and it looks a specific way. Automotive is a little bit broader than that. And I want to say the fact that automotive was well represented. There may have been more automotive entries between the adult class and the master class than there was entirely of everything else. The figures and sci-fi was really well attended for what I could see. Of course, lots of tanks, lots of planes and stuff like that. It was certainly a 50-50 split, if not slightly more automotive than regular, you know, IPMS categories. So, I don't know. And another thing I noticed about it was that they gave a lot of the automotive guys ribbons, little 50-cent ribbons, when they gave the IPMS categories plaques. Now they ran out of plaques because they had so many entries and they had to split categories, and it is, you know, what it is. I hate using that phrase, but, you know, it was just seemed to be a really you know, the automotive tables were the middle tables in this room. The middle tables had a bunch of ribbons on it. The other ones had a bunch of plaques, and it was, you know, I think I gave the master classes the plaques. So the adult guys, the regular modeler, so to speak, because the master class is judged a little harder. Yeah, I guess, you know, I'm personally not upset about the judging necessarily because I didn't expect to win anything. So it's not I didn't win and so I don't like this. It was just I felt bad for some other people who normally would have won and their models deserved to win, and they, you know, were just completely and totally overlooked or shunned or whatever by this odd IPMS judging crew that showed up that day. Oh, and then the coup de grace of everything was the fact that one of the vendors who was beside where I was at most of the day had something stolen from him. Had a $100 resin trans kit. I don't know what it was for. I believe it was more of an IPMS subject than it was automotive. But had it stolen. If you have not seen somebody upset about a model kit before, this was a sincere, honest upset. You know, there's a lot of people behave poorly online. You know, when you don't praise their automotive build or praise their build in general. This was, honest to God, really upset. The chances that anybody who stole it are going to be watching this video are probably slim to none. But if you happen to know who did that, yeah, get a hold of that person. Tell them to give that stuff back. Because that totally just really put a damper on the entire day when you're trying, you know, everybody's packing up and leaving, and there's a guy who is at his wit's end over the fact that somebody walked off with something from his table. And I know that, unfortunately, that's not like the first time that's ever happened. I've heard of people stealing stuff. Or one of the shows we had here in Pittsburgh, somebody tried to walk off with an entire box, of, and I'm talking like a shipping box of model kits off of somebody's table. Just pick the whole thing up, try to go out a back door with it. So that's, like I said, it's not something that's never happened before, but really, that's just, I don't. There's just no way to excuse that kind of behavior out of people. You're at a model contest. We're all there for the same thing, regardless as to whether or not what you build or how you view whatever. Some people, like I said, some people will be happy with the way the show went. Some people will not be happy with the way the show went. But the steal stuff is just really taking it to a whole new level of, like I said, just really was like, I was walking around, talking to some people before I left, and it was like, this sort of just ended weirdly to me and to some other people. I don't say a lot of other people because that's not the correct term, but and then this theft took place, and that really just ruined the whole day, at least to me, because it was just, it made a weird situation even worse. But anyway, off off the downer. Overall, I'd give it like a 6.5 out of 10, because like I said, good stuff on the table. The builders were there; they did their jobs. The people were there and they were friendly. I got some deals I'm going to show you here in a second, and met some great people and got a chance to talk to some great people for the really sit down and talk to some people for the first time, and that was grand. I personally, socially, even financially in the kit buying thing, great show. I just don't know that I would go back to it if the weather was bad. It's not one of those shows where I would really try to get to it no matter what, just based on this one experience. And that's unfortunate, because this show had a really good reputation of being fairly judged in the automotive, pulling in a lot of the automotive guys from different clubs. Hey, I was wearing my gang colors today, so to speak. I've been happy to judge if somebody would have asked. But it sounded like the people that they did pull in to judge were not listened to anyway. In which case, I probably didn't want to judge them, anyway. So anyway, we'll flip the camera around and we'll do what we've got today. Like I said, overall, good show, just not a great show. Yeah, that was sort of a shame, because it really had the potential to be something, and it just sort of, it's one of those things. The wheels just fell off at the end, and everything went to hell. So anyway, be right back. So, what we picked up today, our one sole domestic U.S. purchase, is the freshly released just this week 1966 Chevy Fleetside pickup. I don't have any really particular attachments to the C10 line of pickup trucks that Revell did, but I have the 64 and I have the 65, so now I have the 66. It's obviously still, wrapped in plastic here, so I haven't had a chance to go through it and really look at it, and I'm not going to do it right now on this video, because I'd have to take the 64 down off the shelf, and it's like 8 down in the column that it's in up there, and I don't feel like digging it out. But I will say that, at least from all of the packaging on the outside of this, it appears to be a repop of the 64 Fleetside directly, in the fact that it is factory stock only. That is what I've surmised from the box ends, the box top, the box pictures. Nothing is showing me any speed parts. Nothing is showing me the California wheels, so to speak, wheels and tires that came in the step side. I believe this can only be built factory stock. And at this point, I guess the decals are the only thing about this that are different. I don't know. Like I said, I'd have to really sit down with the parts, because I don't know my mid-60s pickup trucks well enough to say, whoa, yeah, this is clearly different, because the wheels look the same. I guess maybe they're different. The 64 is too far away, I can't see it. But anyway, so I picked this up. This was underneath the new skill level, so this is now skill level 4, even though the other ones were skill level 2. But so there's that. And a couple of things that I had friend of mine holding for me that he had picked up along the way, probably last year, actually. Let me tip this up a little bit. Yeah. Now that we're in the foreign kits, they're bigger. This is the Enthusiast Series version of the 1985 Porsche 911 Turbo. it's, you know, complete, unbuilt, and all that good happiness. I don't know, really, there's not a whole heck of a lot to say here. If you've seen any of the, you know, any of the late 911 Turbo, enthusiast series kits, you know what you're getting here. It just has, this is just the, you know, the turbo version. There's like a non-turbo, there's an 85 Porsche 911 without the, you know, the turbo wing, and there's a Carrera. There's a well, there's a slant nose, and there's a bunch of other. There's a Targa and a Speedster. There's like 4 or 5 of the last. Obviously, it's not the last generation 911. The 911 is still made at this point, but of this sort of 85-ish thing, they made like 5 or 6 of them. So I've just been wanting one of these. I bought the Carrera thinking it was this, and it was the Carrera 2 that Fujimi made that's based off of this is a curbside. There was no enthusiast series version of the Carrera 2, you know, going forwards. These 85s were the last of the enthusiast series. So like I said, I've been looking for one for a while because I've got the Cabriolet, the convertible version, so now I've got the regular one. And speaking of the flat nose, here's the enthusiast series version of the 911 flat nose, or more probably popularly known as the 911 slant nose. Of course, Revell did this kit in 1/24 scale, or Monogram did this kit in 1/24 scale, however you want to look at it. But it's, you know, it's not the enthusiast series version. This kit in general was just reissued by Fujimi in 2015, but it was the curbside version, which doesn't have the engine or anything else that obviously the enthusiast series has. So it wasn't really a kit that I was really looking for per se, but when the reissue was a curbside, I was kind of bummed out about that, and I happened to be, oh, you know, really wish we could find an enthusiast series slant nose for a reasonable amount of money. And then that weekend, my friend was at a show right after I said to one, well, he goes, well, there's a flat nose here for $25 if you want it. And I'm like, well, yeah, pass it on over here. So like I said, I've had these since last year, just hadn't had a chance to go pick them up yet. And then going into actual show purchases today, I picked up 2 Nissan. Well, I picked up actually 3 Nissan race cars. This one and the other one that's going to be factory sealed. It's a little further down the pile. I got off the same guy who really cut me a really, you know, I wouldn't say it was a fantastic deal, but for what he had them priced at versus what I paid for them, it was a really good deal. Probably paid for what they're worth, which is, you know, a good deal for everybody, I guess, because obviously he didn't pay as much as he was asked for them either. This is the Group A Nissan Skyline GTR. It's an R32. This is the HKS Super Oil version, one of the '90s masterpiece of Tamiya kits. So this is. Oh, by the way, there's a copycat. I didn't know if she was going to be in the shot or not. She just she needed to be up here with me. Being that this is the R32 version, you get the full engine, just like you would with the street version. This is more or less the street version of the car, except with a roll cage and some decals and racing seats and stuff like that. Being that that has the '90s masterpiece logo on it, this is a later reissue, so you don't have to worry about the decals being bad as compared to one of the original ones. I don't know if there's a copyright on here or not. 94 is what the copyright's saying, but I don't think that's when this kit actually came out, because you couldn't label something a masterpiece of the '90s during the 1990s. That would be a little presumptuous. But like I said, they even show here on the side, you know, hey, look, it's a street car, it's a race car. What do you want to do with it? It's the Nismo kit before the Nismo kit existed, basically. We'll be building that obviously as the race car. The other non-race car that I got today, and this is something I had planned to get, but when they because they just reissued this here towards the end of last year, right before Christmas. This is the Hasegawa Mazda Cosmo Sport, the 1968 version. Very popular car, even though it was kind of weird because this was, of course, one of the first rotary cars. There's a racing version of this kit that Hasegawa also makes. I don't know. It's one of those kits, one of those car designs. I think that sort of kind of grows on you. You kind of look at it and you're like, ew, I don't know about that. And the more you look at it, the more you sort of can appreciate the design, especially the technical aspects of it. And like I said, this was just reissued by Hasegawa right before the end of the year. So finding one is not hard at all. It just happened to be there today, and it was, I could have probably, in reality, I probably could have picked this up for $1 or $2 less when you start factoring shipping in. So, it was there. It was, it's brand new. I think it actually is the reissue of the kit from talking to Gary Kolchak, who I bought it off of. So, it worked out perfectly as far as I'm concerned. It was a kit I was interested in, and it happened to be there today. So why not buy it? The other kit that I picked up off of Gary is this R33 Nismo GTR. This kit does not have a full engine in it. It has sort of engine parts reproduced in it, sort of the bottom and the top. It's not a whole engine. It's just so you can see the engine parts through the top here, and then of course there's the engine bottom for the chassis. This is the Cure Racing version. It's actually kind of one of the harder versions to find, and I got it for a song, which means that Gary got it for even less. I kind of wonder where he's finding some of these kits sometimes. Decals are mint. I think this might have been a reissue too. Let's see if I find the copyright on here. This is 96, but it's not a 96 because it's too new for that. One of these kits that gets reissued every 5 or 6 years or so. Been building it just this way, as it's shown here. This is the Japan Super GT class, basically, and again, sponsorship by Tamiya, so that's probably why this specific livery got made. There are something like 7 or 8 alternative liveries, mainly out of Studio 27, for the R33 GTR Super GT. It's easy for me to say. Car. There is also, and I'm going to show it to you here, and this will be the next thing I put up here, also a Le Mans version of the R33, and I don't believe there are any associated decals for the Le Mans version because it's a slightly different kit, I think. It might be the same thing, actually, but it'll be one of those things when we build it, we'll figure it out. And so, that takes us to this, the other factory-sealed kit that I got off of the same guy. This is the Clarion car audio sponsored Le Mans version of the Nismo GTR. I said I have to sit down with them. I think the wing is different. Well, yeah, the wing is clearly different. Looks like trying to look between the two of them, whether or not the wheels are different or not. Might not be much other than that that's different, but I don't believe there's anything else. I'd have to go look. I think there might be another Le Mans decal sheet. I know there's a replacement decal sheet for this, but hopefully I won't have to replace it. It's factory sealed, and therefore it shouldn't, have any problems with it. But another hard to find kit, a little bit. Right now, to me, it doesn't have any of these R33s. I think they may still. I have to go look. I think they're going to do a March reissue of the Calsonic version, but right now, as it stands, right this instant in time, there are none of the R33s are actually in production right now, or readily available. And then last but not least, is this. This is the sort of the Japanese touring car championship kind of thing. This is the Jax Accord, the Honda Accord. The Jax sponsorship will not be done as the Jax car. The decals look like they would work okay, but what I've got coming are the Shunko replacement PIAA decals. This kit actually was done in 3 different liveries. There's a Jax, there's the PIAA, and then there's a Castrol version that's black. I want the PIAA version to match the PIAA Civic that just came out of BMAX. So I have the matching set of those. There's one more PIAA Civic that Tamiya did. I guess it's what the E4, E5 generation of the Civic. I'm sure somebody will just correct me because I know I'm being wrong. I'm tired and I don't care enough to go look it up. But there's another PIAA Civic out there other than the one that BMAX just did. This is kind of a nice kit. It's curbside, but it's pretty detailed. Looking at it, this obviously is a racing front end to it.
But other than that, it's pretty much a Honda Accord. It's kind of one of those things where it probably wouldn't have sold enough to justify the body mods, because the body of this is all one piece. The bumpers are already attached. But, maybe you tool it up so this bumper's not attached, and, suddenly you've got a street car out of this. I know a bunch of people, well, I don't personally know, but I've seen several street conversions, or at least non-decorated racing versions of this kit around. Because I just can't resist at this point. Beyond this front end that has, the vented area here, that's otherwise, that's pretty much just a straight Honda Accord. Whoops, a little too high there. That's pretty much just a regular straight Honda Accord. Tool me up a street interior. Come on. It's the best-selling car in America, was it not? Or maybe the Camry was? They were going back and forth there for a while back, and when it was 97 when this kit was originally issued. So, I don't know. I see why people converted into the street car, but I don't think, it's really not that far away from the street car, frankly, to begin with. So, that is that, guys. Picked up some great kits for good money. Got a chance to talk to some people and have a good time. And the rest of it's all water under the bridge. Just wanted to address my opinions on it. Hopefully it didn't piss anybody off. If it did, tough crap. And we'll see you guys on the other side.